good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and wherever you are in your head, and wherever you are in your body, and hopefully occasionally those three all align. Welcome to another episode of All Angles Asked. My name is Ray Gage. I'm here with my co-host, D. Grant Smith. D.
Aloha. Howdy.
Well, we have a little bit of an idea of what we want to talk about this time, and just like every other time, we'll probably start there and just see where it goes.
Hey, before we do that, though, I had this idea just pop into my head. We typically say at the end of the podcast, which are usually about an hour long, we usually say, "Hey, if there's something you'd like to say or add to this conversation, or pipe in, or question you have, or whatever, just hit us up." But we don't ever really give our contact information, and I honestly don't hardly spend much time in the online spaces anymore. I'm very much not on any social media very much at all. So, but I do check my email. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, hey, if at any point in any of the things that we say today, you want to comment or ask a question or tell us that we're wrong or whatever, my email address is dgrant, DGRANT, at dgrantsmith.com. And Ray, if you want to give your email address out now, I think that'd be cool.
Perfect. That'd probably be a good idea to do that every episode, but we might forget. My email is ray@ruuntapped.com, and that's AREYOU untapped.com.
Awesome.
If you reach out, then I can guarantee you, whether it's to myself or to D or to both of us, you will receive a response.
Absolutely.
But we talked about before, and I'll let you kind of introduce the concept for today that we're starting our conversation around, because I think it's something that everyone can relate to, and they just maybe don't have the right words for it when they're trying to explain it to someone else. And a lot of times maybe it's just a feeling. And they can't identify what that feeling is. They know what it feels like, but they don't really know how to explain it other than, like, I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, I think that's probably a prevalent and common descriptor to. So Ray's verbiage for it is the economy of striving, and I think that's probably my verbiage too. It's its own ecosystem. So maybe that's another way of looking at it, but it's being in this perpetual state of striving and trying to make things happen. And when I was in every business that I have worked in every business community that I've worked in, it's been prevalent there. In the creator space, it's prevalent there. In the religious space, it's prevalent there. In the relationship space, it's prevalent there. In the personal development space, it's prevalent there. I don't know that there's a space, personal health, physical fitness, it's prevalent there. There's not really an area of life where there isn't the dichotomy or the economy of striving, of trying to make things happen, of trying to be in control and force things into being. And in the creative space, that's the trying to get people to notice you, pay attention to you, quote unquote, like you and follow you, even though, that's such a misnomer. I'm laughing as I think about it, because like the idea that I click a button and now I'm quote unquote following somebody, and now I'm in their world, and that's amplifying their reach or whatever. Like, yeah, there's some metrics to that, but there's also there's the thing beneath the thing. So my verbiage is the story beneath the story, or the thing beneath the thing. Underneath the surface level stuff of striving is this desperation and this lack and scarcity mindset that there's not enough, and I have to go out and strive and try to make more happen or try to create things. And all of it is to feed this egoic concept within the lower part of myself that says that I'm not enough. And if I can go and get somebody, or most of us that work in, whether it's the creative space or the business space or whatever, we don't just want one person. Our ego wants us to appeal to the masses. And we're constantly striving to have maximum impact. And we tend to think that people that have reached some sort of metric or milestone or um, uh, accolade of 1 million followers or 1 million fans or 1 million subscribers, or for whatever reason, 1 million is such a big deal, or 1,000 is such a big deal. We spend so much time trying to appeal to the masses, but the masses change their mind very easily. And they have very, very limited, if any, loyalty to anyone or anything. Pop culture has been sucking in, chewing up, and spitting out the quote unquote stars for long periods of time. But the ones that typically have the longest staying power and the most freedom, and from my perspective, maybe yours too, Ray, the greatest levels of creative output are the ones that don't give a crap about any of that stuff. They're living in an economy of freedom and an economy of peace and an economy where they're not seeking out trying to make things happen. They're not seeking out trying to gain somebody else's approval. They're creating because they want to. They're making something because they want to. They're not buying into the systems that say, let me get you into, we've talked about this, let me get you into my funnel so I can plug you into my system and get your email address and do all this stuff so I can try to sell you things at all bends in the road. And I'll be honest, I did that for a long time. I thought that that was the way. I bought into the economy of striving in just about every job and area that I've ever worked in. And one of the things that I've made a commitment to, especially last year and especially this year, was letting that go. And so that's that. I want to explore that with you here, because we've been talking a lot about what abundance really is over the past several episodes and conversations. And attached to that, or connected to that, in my own journey and coming into a greater awareness of what abundance is, a greater awareness of what it means to be connected with God and one with God, is the realization of all of the ways that I've bought into the facade of what is the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, as I think that we all have this idea that that we all entered this economy of striving, and that we all had a different entry point.
Mm.
The way that I describe that at the very base level, the economy of striving is that the belief, there's a belief that there is something outside of myself that I have to have or that I need. And that comes from, you mentioned it already, the original limiting belief, which is I am not enough.
Mm.
Every limiting belief is some form of that. Like, that is the only limiting belief when you trace it back. It's one limiting belief. It's not multiple limiting beliefs. And that's the entry point. That's all of us. That every single human who is alive now or ever has lived, ever will live, has that as their entry point, I believe. There's one entry point to the economy of striving, and that's the belief that there's something outside of me that I need that I don't have because I'm not enough.
So that, I want you to talk a little bit, because you and I've talked about this a lot, actually. I want you to go into the Garden of Eden and share with our friends listening, like the the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve being presented with the tree from the fruit was directly connected to what you just said.
at the risk of undercomplicating things, I don't like to overcomplicate them. So there's hopefully we'll be able to find balance, and you'll ask questions. The we think of what happened in the garden as the original sin, and I think that's a misnomer because even the word sin in the scripture didn't mean something I did wrong or from a moral perspective that this was something that I did wrong. It was something that I missed the mark. It's an archery term. So
Hmm.
it's missing the mark. So it's not about a moral obligation that I failed to meet. It's more about a misalignment. Like I went a different direction than the direction that I was intended to go. So the thought behind the so let's just think about this from an extremely practical perspective. This isn't theology. We there might be some theology in it later, but this isn't theology. This is just let's just think about the story as it unfolded and what had to have been in place for it to even make sense as a story. So the serpent, and we're going to call it the serpent. That's how it's described. Whether or not it was an actual snake, we don't know. Doesn't matter. But the idea that was presented to Eve first, right, was if didn't doesn't it say that if you eat of the fruit you will surely die? But he says, well, if you eat of the fruit you will become like gods. So let's think about that, right? What do I have to believe about myself first
Hmm.
for that thought to even be able to land on fertile ground? I like to call it, right? So that ground
Hmm.
had to be fertile for that to land on. So if I think of it like this, and I've said this before, and we kind of chuckle about it because you've talked about this, and you'll know what I mean when I say it. But if I say you're a giraffe, the first thought that enters your head is well, that's ridiculous. I'm not a giraffe.
Hmm.
Or you're an elephant. Like put any animal in there, right? You're an elephant. No, I'm not. I mean, that's just silly. Like there's absolutely zero entry point for that to land on fertile ground. Like
Hmm.
I'm sowing that seed on concrete. It's not gonna happen. Nothing's going anywhere.
Hmm.
But if I say or anything or anyone says anything that makes that goes like this, you're not quite enough.
Not quite.
You're not quite enough. Not just not
Mm.
enough. You're not quite enough. That lands for everybody
Mm.
somehow.
Mm.
Now that ground is fertile. Now I can introduce other things to you to fix that gap that you have perceived within yourself that you're not quite enough. So you put the word quite in there, right? For a reason, but because I could just say I am not enough or say like, you know what, you're not enough. You could put anything in the blank before enough. Like you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough,
Good
you're
enough.
not
Yeah.
whatever, you're not blank enough.
Right.
Every single person on the face of the planet has a word before enough, at least one. That is what I mean by fertile ground.
Mm. Okay.
So for the thought that I need to do something to become like God, I have to first believe that I'm not. And the only way for me to believe that I'm not is to believe that I'm separate.
Yep.
So now now I have become what was whole and saw myself as something other than whole. There's no other way for that to have landed for Adam and Eve. No way. So that's when I say the original limiting belief is I am not enough, but the I am not enough doesn't even register if you don't first believe that you're separate. All right. So did that
Yeah.
kind of
So
flow with what you were
so
asking?
yeah, and the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you and I we we're what we're talking about is essentially, I mean, what we're talking about is life. What we're talking about is consciousness, and we cross over into these different realms. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it's creativity, sometimes it's storytelling, writing. Sometimes it's spirituality. Sometimes it's religion. Sometimes it's philosophy. Sometimes it's entertainment. Like movies and all kinds of stuff. But like in all of this stuff, it's a weave, and there's interconnected points inside all of it. And so, as soon as you were telling me about like the as soon as you said here's something that every single person wrestles with, I immediately thought, oh, that's separation. We go like, and all of us wrestle with that because it all goes back to the origin point of the Garden of Eden. And you and I have a we have a different take on that story than what a lot of people do. And actually, it's interesting when I think about it. The Garden of Eden comes up in conversations that I have with just about everybody that I have any sort of relationship with it. That story comes up in conversation at some point or another, and the perspectives that I get on that are very different and unique. But since we have this opportunity now to have a conversation that other people can listen in on, and since we invited people to share their thoughts and weigh in a way, I wanted to go ahead and begin our conversation today with that point, especially in regards to the economy of striving, because the idea that I need to do something to make things work, just like you said, is built upon a fertile soil that says I'm not enough. If I was enough and if I believed that I was whole, then I wouldn't buy into any notion that I need to go try to do something to make things happen, or that I have to go prove something to other people in order to be accepted, or I have to reach some sort of metric in order for everything to be okay.
I don't even know how to add anything to that because if we think about it, like there's so many people that just feel exhausted. Like, and I hear this a lot, right? It's not just from people that I work with in because I work with companies and businesses. It's everybody. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, and I really feel that the reason that people feel so exhausted at its very core is because they are carrying so much that isn't theirs to carry.
Mm,
And you can look at that a couple of different ways as well. But the feeling itself is created by the economy of striving. Like that there's always another goal. Like there's always something else that has to happen. There's always something else to accomplish. There's a which keeps me future focused.
hmm
There's something that I haven't achieved yet. And that exists in all those things that you mentioned. So whether it's education or religion, it doesn't matter. That every institution that has decided that we have created ourselves, right? We there was a gap And there's somebody saw this gap and moved into the gap. And then this institution was created. And now I have this institution filling this gap. It, in and of itself, it wasn't a right or wrong thing for that institution to show up there. It was just supply and demand.
Mm,
I can rage against the machine all I want to, but the machine is just like, wait a second, there was a gap here. You wanted it filled. I filled it. Now you're mad.
hmm
It's we forget how, we just forget the real basic ways that things happen and why they happen. But the exhaustion that most people are feeling is, and people just feel exhausted. It's like, why am I not happy?
mm,
Right? I just won. Why do I feel so empty when I just
mm,
won by everyone else's definition?
mm,
Like the other thing I ask, like, why did the finish line move?
mm,
And my answer to that is the finish line moved because it was never real. It was
mm,
never meant to be reached. It was meant to keep us running.
mhm,
The finish line is a trap, and
mm,
that it's a trap. It's our own doing. I mean, we made the economy of striving. No one made it for us. We think that we put this idea that there's something outside of ourselves that's doing this to us. Then we can feel better about it. But do you feel better? How many people feel better?
mm. Well, I think that, I mean, we did create it, but we also have perpetuated it, and we have also inherited it and then perpetuated it more. So, um, I mean, the people that, from my experience, the people that have the most freedom and the most peace are the people that have essentially allowed themselves to break out of the matrix and not like separated themselves out, basically said, peace out, you do what you want to. I'm going to trust that I'm going to be okay with just life and, uh, and not having to prove anything to other people, not caring whether or not anybody notices or, like, and man, there was a huge part of my life, probably from around 2011, maybe 2010 through maybe 2022, maybe no, 24, uh, of trying to be a big deal in that influencer space and trying to be the guy that had the answers to things. Um, and I mean, there are whole economies that are built around that idea. Much of the self-help personal development world is built around that idea, around the idea that somebody has figured out how to not have this problem anymore, and you just need to buy into their system. And I had a system for healthy relationships and healing from heartbreak and divorce. I wrote a book about my journey into it. But then when I bought into okay, before I do this, because what I was about to say, I realized, wait a minute, I have to take ownership of this. I did buy into to this belief system, but that doesn't erase my responsibility for what I was doing. Like, I did buy into this belief system that I needed to present myself as somebody that had the answers and that knew the way, and that if people just bought into my system, then I had the answer for them. And what I could provide for people in actuality was some tools and some know-how on how to use those tools. But I very quickly realized that, man, I don't actually have answers to like the big picture stuff. Only other people have those answers. And one of the reasons why, there's a quote from Bruce Lee that I use all the time. And this is kind of this. I appreciate this on a variety of levels, but this helped me be able to step out of the economy of striving because it's actually what's been real in my life. Um, Bruce Lee said, "It's not my job to tell you what the truth is. It's my job to point you towards the truth and trust that you will find that truth along with God when you're supposed to." And what that has done for me is reminded me that, like, in every area where I've been given any level of wisdom or insight or enlightenment or awakening or whatever, like, I can put that out into the world. But for me to tell other people that this is what you do with it, and this is what this is, and this is why this is the one way, like, I'm sending somebody back into the garden, and I've become the snake, and I now have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And if you'll just take my apple, then then you'll have everything you could ever want. And nobody has that. Some of my favorite teachers are people that are no longer alive, first of all, so they can't make money off of me. Not that that's a thing, but they're people that, like, none of them said, "Hey, this is the only way that there is. Do things my way, and this is going to solve all your problems." Um, they were people that basically said, like, you have the power of God within you, and you get to figure out for yourself and discover for yourself what that power means and how it works. And here's some things you can do that will make your process and your journey better. But, like, the only person that's going to walk through your fires are you. And sometimes those fires are given to you as gifts. So the idea that, like, we have these problems that we need to overcome, sometimes those problems are massive gifts that God himself gave us for us to experience something on our journey that, like, we have to have. And if we try to run away from them or solve the puzzle or whatever, like, without actually getting in underneath that surface level thing and seeing the story beneath the story, then we're actually stealing from ourselves and going in the opposite direction of where we could go. I know I just went on this giant weird tangent in saying all that stuff, but it made sense to me in my head.
Well, I do appreciate you bringing up the personal perspective, because I think it's important for I think it's important to remind people that we aren't, when we talk about these things, that we're not coming from somewhere above them. That
Hmm.
that these are things that we have experienced and are still experiencing because we haven't arrived, if you want to say that. But
Hmm.
it's just because like you use yourself as an example, and I talk about this a lot because I used to teach I used to teach leadership, and
Hmm.
I wrote a program. You saw the brochure for it. You said this. I think you made the comment like this is the best written brochure to explain a leadership program
Hmm.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I actually sold that for literally thousands of dollars. I sold that to different companies and took people through the leadership program. I wrote it, taught it, rewrote it, taught it, rewrote it again. Loved the final version of it. But then I realized that even though it was built on a genuine recognition that was different than most leadership development programs out there, so I'm not saying there aren't any that were like it. There just weren't any that I was aware of like it. That that leadership is an inside job. It came from a genuine recognition, but then I woke up one day and realized that I was doing the same thing that everybody else was doing. I was selling a framework for people to learn something, and the needle was staying stuck.
Hmm.
It was exposing basically what it was doing was is it was exposing what the real problem was, but there wasn't a way to like develop a framework around what the real problem is. And the real problem goes back to everything we've talked about. It goes back to I am not enough. So that what I'm trying to do what I was trying to do was is I was trying to out train a fractured inner relationship.
Whoa.
And you cannot out train a fractured inner relationship. You can
Okay.
you can only rehearse around it.
Okay. I love what you just said, but I want you to break it down for people that might not have a concept yet of what it is that you're talking about. So when you say you can't train a fractured inner relationship, let's break down when you say fractured inner relationship, you're talking about your inner relationship with yourself and with God, right?
Correct.
Okay. And when you say train, you're talking about making some sort of self correction to ideas and behaviors, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah. I mean that's pretty much what, you just pretty much said it. And that the reason that I put it that way is because of the idea that I am not enough. The economy of striving comes in and tries to fix that for us by making the
Right.
problem something that I need outside of myself.
Hmm.
So if I'm following a framework or I'm following a guideline, hoping that that framework is going to fix my problem, I'm trying to out train that fractured inner relationship.
Mm.
And it doesn't work. And it just, I'm not making a statement for anybody that if they hear it, it doesn't land for them. It doesn't work. I've experienced it. If it worked, we wouldn't have to keep taking them over and over again. If it worked, we wouldn't have to keep doing them over and over again.
Okay. So, in a way, this goes into something that you and I have talked about too, which is the personal development space is in, well, I'm gonna tap the personal development slash self help space in some ways. You've said it more specifically for the leadership development space. And I don't want to put words into your mouth, even though I've heard you say them. I'll let you say them yourself. But in some ways, I'll say it from my perspective. From my perspective, a lot of the personal development um, materials out there. My little dog's in my lap, and she's adorable. The personal development space, in some ways, the self help space, in some ways, the spiritual development space, in some ways, is bullshit and continues to feed into the notion that we are not enough and that we are not whole. And because we're not enough and we're not whole, we continue to need to buy this program from this guru, buy this book from this expert. So and so has a new book out about blah, blah, blah. And if we'll just read that, he promises to tell us all the answers. And that's going to dramatically change the way that everything is. I don't want to what I'm about to say is not to besmirch or be derogatory or negative towards this particular person. It's just as an example. Whether you like him or don't, doesn't matter. Tony Robbins is a very, very brilliant person who's done a lot of wonderful things in the world, but he still has problems that he's wrestling with. He has amassed enough money to be able to buy an island on Fiji, but yet he still, according to his advertisements, still is having business issues and having struggles in some ways of making money. So the idea that anybody, even the people at the very, very top of the ladder, that we are all in the economy of striving or striving to get up there and be like them, they haven't got it all figured out. They haven't erased the idea of problem from their consciousness. If they went down that road, maybe their messages and their advertisements and their books might speak a different message. I'm not saying that what's in their stuff is wrong or bad or anything like that, but what I am saying is that like it even the people that seem to have reached what you were describing a minute ago as the finish line, they've they've crossed the finish line over and over and over again and have the trophies to prove it. But as long as they're in the economy of striving, they haven't actually won the thing that they think that they want. I don't want to be a part. For me personally, that's not a finish line I ever want to cross. I'm interested actually in no longer being in a race and separating myself out from that idea of separation entirely and just enjoying the growth and the beauty, and also reminding myself that there are still places inside my inner world, in my inner relationship, that wants to jump back in and does jump back into the economy of striving. And I haven't arrived either at this place of euphoria and absolute perfection. Because to quote, I guess it's Jesus in A Course in Miracles, where he says, if just one person fully accepted the atonement, that would be enough. I haven't become that one person yet. So there's still there's still a an evolution for me as well.
I like to use the example, the reason that I like to use the example of the leadership development industry is because of the sheer size of the numbers. And so it's easier for people to grasp what I'm talking about or what you're talking about. So I'm going to use numbers to talk about what you just said when you're talking about self-help and personal development. And so that according to Forbes, Forbes tracks a lot of things that have to do with money, like, including, the world's wealthiest people and how the
Mhm.
billionaire list and all that kind of stuff. But they're well known for understanding things about money. Forbes estimates that the leadership development industry is worldwide a $466 billion a year industry. Now, 400. So there are only 23 countries in the world out of the 190 some countries in the world that have a higher gross domestic product for their entire country every year than what the world spends on leadership development.
Okay. Will you say that one more time, but break it down a little bit? Because are you saying that what is the number of countries that you're saying that don't have the same amount of money as people spend on personal development? What is that number again?
Somewhere around 170 of the 190. The last number I saw was that there was 193 countries in the world, and 170 of them have a lower gross domestic product than what the world spends on leadership development every year.
Okay, so my math is not incredibly accurate here, but let's say somewhere between, you're saying between like 85 to 90% of the world doesn't have the GDP to be able to spend on leadership the way that the leadership industry is outputting materials and financial growth, or its place in the world.
Right. And to be clear, that's what Forbes is saying. And that's what,
Okay.
and then when you go ask Google, like how many countries in the world have a higher gross domestic product than $466 billion? I'm not saying this. This is information that anybody can
Right.
go get, but this puts it in perspective. Now, also, according to Forbes, about 250 billion or a little more than 250 billion of that 466 billion is spent just in the US alone.
Okay.
So, if you think about it like this, that is a big machine.
Mm.
For that machine to stay running, how many people a year does it want to train that don't need it anymore, to not need it anymore?
Quite a few.
Oh, no, it wants everybody to need it again next year because it's the only way for
Uh,
it to sustain itself is for you to stay stuck.
So it's feeding addiction.
So it's feeding an addiction. It's not solving the problem. It's not creating new leaders.
Mm.
It's creating people who get stuck in the machine. So,
Ah,
so like, okay, I said, what happens if what happens if I don't, well, I had someone say to me, well, that the leadership development industry is important because there's, we have so many new people coming. I'm like, well, the leadership industry can't sustain itself on the new people coming in. There's no way. There's not enough new people coming in. It has to keep you stuck. So it has to figure out a way to develop a framework. So if you think
ah,
it has to have, why do you think there's so many different frameworks within leadership development? Because there's that many different kinds of people that they have to keep stuck in leadership development. Otherwise, there's no way for that machine to sustain itself. I'm not talking about to your point, there's really good people inside of those institutions that really mean well and think they're helping. They're just feeding the machine too and don't realize it.
mm.
Like
Or they do
that,
realize it and they're milking it.
or
That
they do
too.
realize it and they're milking it because they like what they get from the machine. And
Right.
if I could buy an island in Fiji, I'd feel pretty good about that. But now all of a sudden, I need more money.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
maintain an island in Fiji? And, you know, Jeff Bezos builds a $500 million yacht and decides that he's going to sell it like 2 years later because he realizes it takes 30 some $1 million a year just to maintain it. These machines have to keep feeding themselves somehow, some way. And
Hmm.
if enough people said enough, what happens to the machine? If I can't keep you exhausted and looking for another solution to your exhaustion within the machine, what happens to the machine?
Eventually, it stops working.
Now, put any institution in that spot where we just talked about leadership development and tell me that it's not the same thing. Government, education, medicine, religion. It just goes on. Tell me which one doesn't fit that description.
I'm going through it in my head. Entertainment fits, music, movies, book, book writing, gardening. Well, or was it farming, tech? Uh, Basically, if there's some sort of financial component to it, then it's yeah. The whole time we're saying this stuff, I keep thinking of The Matrix, which this isn't the first time that's happened. I think that movie has come up in just about like the last 5 or 6 podcast episodes, at least we've talked about. But the thought that popped into my head of if Neo wakes up, but he doesn't join up with Morpheus, he just gets out of his little pod and he goes off into some corner somewhere. Does the machine give a shit about him? Maybe not, but what you just said a minute ago of the machine has to keep everybody that's in it still plugged into it. Not it can't sustain itself on just attracting new people. So going back to the finish line metaphor. There is no finish line. There is no graduation point. You don't get your diploma. We're like, okay, now we have grown you into a place where you can go out into the world and make a difference. No, now you can go out into the world and make a difference, but you still need to come back and make sure that you are doing your continuing education. Because unless you remain plugged into this, you're going to be of no good or service to the people that you want to be in service to.
Now, if you're listening I'm going to ask you this. So, D, if you were a first time listener to that conversation that we just had, how do you think you would feel about your feeling of exhaustion?
I think I'd have a couple different thoughts, depending on my perspective and depending on my mood. I would potentially be really pissed off at us for broaching this because if I had bought into the economy of striving and I have been striving for 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or hell 20 or 50 years, how dare I, how dare D Grant uh, make some sort of claim that says that there's an insecurity inside of me that is promoting me to do all these things. Actually, I'm not an insecure person. I'm confident and strong-willed, and I do a bunch of good things. And how presumptuous is it for this dude to assume that I've got some sort of stick up my butt and I'm trying to prove something to other people, and there's something wrong with me for that? And then to tie it into the Garden of Eden, or to connect dots to other very successful entrepreneurs and business people and people who have made a big difference in the whole world. And who do I think that I am? I might have that attitude. I might also have an attitude of, wow, I haven't thought about it like that. And every year I keep striving, or no, I just realized I used the word. Okay, I keep trying to I keep working hard towards, I keep recommitting myself. I keep setting these really big goals and have these ambitions and have this vision board. And there's all this stuff that I want to do. And I'm making progress on it, but am I actually feeling fulfilled? Whoa, there's a different word. Fulfilled. What does fulfillment feel like? And does fulfillment actually come in this process? Can I be a part of this game or this machine or this industry or this framework and reach a level of satisfaction and fulfillment where I really feel an internal place within me, in my mind, in my heart, in my relationships with myself, with God, with other people, with my family, with my spouse, with my friends. Can I feel like I'm actually good, or can I feel like I'm actually enough? Do I feel that way at all? I could, yeah, yeah, Zoe. I could, silly kid. I could get into this place where, after hearing that conversation that we just had, I begin a process of getting curious and asking questions. I think that for me, it would probably be one of those two things, depending on my mood and what my conscious level is at, and what my openness level is at. And or it could be somewhere. It could be like, okay, these two guys are rambling about stuff I have no idea what they're talking about. It's just whatever, and that's fine too. Um, but I'm saying that because that's been my experience um, in having conversations with some people, and also in my journey within myself, in being pissed off at why things haven't gone the way that they have, when people have said certain things to me that I now, looking back in retrospect, I'm like, okay, they really did have my maybe my best interest or something close to my best interest at heart, but I wasn't in a place where I could receive that kind of feedback and that kind of insight. My hope is that, since our whole podcast is built around looking at things from different angles and asking different questions to explore what something really is, and to do so in a way that is very different than what a lot of the conversations, if any of the conversations, that we're used to having with other people. So that would be my response to your question, man.
And the beautiful thing about that is uh, to your point that you just made, whether you probably realize you made a point, maybe you didn't, is that all of those scenarios that you mentioned, or all of those people that you were talking about, were you at some point.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all of those people that you just mentioned, that was me at some point. And
Mm,
the one that gives the most, the one that would give me the most pushback is the one that says, but wait a minute, when I accomplished that, I didn't feel fractured.
mm,
I felt, but what I didn't realize, but I realize now, the this version of me sitting here today would say to that version of me that said that is, but the only reason you did that was because you didn't feel complete.
yeah.
And that's the thing that is hard for people that are in that position to hear. And I can't, and I tell you that, like, I like to sit here and say, oh no, I would love to hear that. I would have loved to have heard that in that position. That's not a fair thing for me to assume that I would have loved to hear that in that position. It doesn't make it untrue because I didn't want to hear it.
Mm,
You're asking, and this is what I'm talking about when I says you can't out train a fractured inner relationship. You can only rehearse around it. Is
mm,
now I'm building scripts and sets around the fractured inner relationship so that I don't have to look at it. Right now, it's like,
ah,
think of the Wizard of Oz.
mm,
There's no man behind the curtain. So we if at some point, I know that for most people, at some point, they may not want to admit it out loud to anyone. And they may not want to admit it to themselves because they don't know how else to not feel badly about who they are.
wow. Yeah. There's a thing that keeps popping into my head now as we're having this conversation, or it's kind of the road is bent in a way. Okay, dude, so what's the answer to that? I've been in this economy of striving. I bought into all these things. I continue to buy into these programs. I continue to spend money on all this stuff. And it's getting me somewhere, but it's not actually like I don't want to be addicted to a ideology or to some sort of belief system that says that I'm not enough. So what is the answer? Oh wait, but you just said that you can't tell me what the answer is. You can't tell me what the truth is. You can only point me towards the truth. I've got to figure all this stuff out for myself. Well, then that's more of the same stuff that I've been wrestling with, which is what brought me into the whole economy of striving in the first place, because I didn't want to be alone trying to figure this stuff out. But you're telling me I am alone. That's just the way that it has to be. So I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, because I'm damned if I do if I buy into the system, but I'm damned if I don't. I end up alone and struggling either way. So what do we do? I guess there's no hope in this thing. And I don't want anybody to walk away with that as the main takeaway because that's not true either. It's not true that there is no hope. If you feel like it's either the economy of striving and trying to arrive at some sort of pinnacle place and buy into some sort of system and reach some sort of all of the people that sell frameworks and products and programs and all that stuff, they are all promising a destination. The destination, the idea of the destination is the thing that you're actually buying. It comes by way of their book, their course, their seminar, their program, their coaching package, whatever. But there is a destination that is being sold to you. That is what you think you're actually buying. But what you're really buying is a new way of looking at yourself and a new framework or new concept of yourself, a new belief system that you're going to still have to do work in doing exactly what Ray just talked about. You're going to have to create new sets in your mind and new stories in your head and in your way of living to come about a way to bring you into some sort of destination that's going to take you where you think you want to go. And maybe it will move you forward in some way. There's a lot of programs I bought into that actually did move me forward. I'm very grateful for those people that were coaches and were leaders and teachers in my life. But they didn't. There's three of them I'm thinking of right now that when I bought into their program, I thought that I was going to get to this destination that I still haven't reached yet. And I don't think I ever will along those lines because that wasn't actually what they could give me. they couldn't actually deliver the destination that was promised, no matter how expensive or inexpensive it was. What I had to do, and I'm still doing, well, our whole conversation today started on this idea. I want to talk about getting out of the idea of seeking, because I have really gotten into a place where every day is beautiful and every day is peaceful and every day is wonderful. And I have told myself that story over and over and over and over and over again for a few years now. And now I'm getting to live that story. Is it perfect? It's perfectly imperfect. But does everything always work out absolutely perfect where there's no quote unquote problems? No. But what the hell is life about if you don't actually experience some tension and a little bit of disappointment and things not going your way every now and then, or even repeatedly for a little while, just to appreciate the nuance of what's going on around you and choosing to be at a place of peace in the process?
Or getting to the place where you can recognize the peace without having to experience the chaos.
There you go.
What I would offer is this, because the minute the actually not even the minute, the in the half second that clarity presents, the ego notices it.
Yep.
And wants to rush in with something else. Oh,
yeah,
they're seeing clearly, right? Like the matrix doesn't disappear because you saw it.
There you go.
So
awareness doesn't change it. Yeah.
The awareness doesn't change it. It's still there, right? It's not the awareness of it that changes it. But the ego will step in and say, oh, they have some clarity now. So we're going to make awakening the next framework. We're going to make enlightenment the next framework.
Yeah.
Well, that's just that's the same. It's the same menu. Like I'm ordering from the same menu.
Disguised differently.
It's just got a different disguise now. So and I don't realize that it's what I'm still ordering from is not just the same menu. It's a false menu. So if I'm ordering from a false menu, then anything I'm ordering from it is false. But the ego is that fast. Like, oh, they saw it. It doesn't try to fight and argue. It just steps in with another framework. It steps in with another how to.
Yeah, I bought into that a lot.
It's so the hard thing about this conversation is because we're so programmed into the concept of I am not enough. It's hard to grasp not doing anything.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, well, also because we've bought for so long and been practiced for so long and striving and striving and striving, the idea of not doing anything feels sacrilegious.
What if the recognition is all that you need?
When you say the recognition, what do you mean?
Is all you need to do is see it. You don't need to do anything with what you see.
Okay.
Because doing something with what you see is another framework.
But you just said a second ago that being aware of it doesn't change anything. But now you're saying that being aware of it does.
So what I'm saying is that the being aware of it. So that's a good that's let's go back for a second because there's context that probably was missing from that.
The reason I'm asking this is because as an objective observer, someone might not be able to put the pieces together and recognize that those are different pieces to the same puzzle, but in different spots. not necessarily the same pieces in the same puzzle in the same spot.
Being aware of it doesn't change it. Being aware of it can change you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not the same thing. So for one thing, right? But if I decide that my awareness has to turn into a new how to,
Mm-hmm.
now my awareness didn't do anything but keep me stuck in the thing.
Right.
So if I see it and just say, oh, whatever, and I don't do anything with it, it's just the recognition is there that I see it now. I see it for what it is. I'm not trying to take that recognition or that awareness or that seeing and turn it into another framework. I'm just noticing. I say it
Yeah.
like this: I just notice, and then I notice the next thing, and then I notice the next thing. I'm not attaching anything to the noticing. I'm not making the noticing a framework. I'm not making
Mm-hmm.
noticing as my new goal. I'm just noticing.
Yeah.
It's basically it's what happens when awareness becomes aware. The ego, the egoic mind immediately wants to attach a definition.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say that's what happens when awareness becomes aware, well, what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, is the minute I try to attach a definition to it, then it's not the thing that I've tried to define. And we've talked about this before too. Right? The Tao that can be named is not the Tao is the best
Mm-hmm.
example of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was also thinking like, well, like we say in our Resplendent Window group, I don't know shit. That too.
And that's the so what I and how there is a some people need a how to just from the perspective of understanding, like if I had to look back and say, and I think you'll appreciate where I'm coming from with this, is like what do I need to, it's not so much what do I need to do as much as it is what do I need to let go of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you when I say it? And so
Yeah.
one thing that I would say is if somebody is saying, okay, so what do I need to let go of? I would suggest something that you could start with letting go of is expectations,
Which can be really hard when you build your life around that.
which can be really exactly. Then I would say this because I say this a lot to everybody as well. Is when somebody brings up, well, that's going to be really hard. Well, just remember, everything is hard until it isn't.
Oh man, that's gold right there. I'm picking that one up, put in my pocket. Thank you.
And that so this and I just came to this like aha moment for myself recently. In that in the why doesn't that bother you? Why doesn't what bother me? Well, this used to bother you when this happened. I'm like, I didn't even realize that I had made that transition somehow, somewhere. So it made me sit back and think, okay, well, what they're right. Like this thing that just happened, if it had happened 2 years ago, would really have bothered me, but it doesn't bother me now. What's changed for me that this doesn't bother me anymore? And that's what came to mind first was I dropped my
Mm,
expectations around it.
mm.
dropping expectations. So it's not a how to, right? It's not a framework. Well, how do I drop expectations? I don't know. You just drop them. You just drop it. What does dropping expectations look like? Well, it looks different for me than it does for you. I'm offering a suggestion of something that you might be able to try to let go of. How that looks for you looks different than it does for anybody else.
So what you've just done now is reform, reshape. Um, what we talked about a minute ago about how so much of the anything space is built around frameworks and answers. What you just provided, Ray, is this isn't an answer, it's a suggestion. And what do we, so, and I'm saying that because if we look at this as though it's like two sheets of paper, on one sheet of paper, we have this idea that, like, if I do this thing, I get this result. There's an expectation that's there. If I buy this product, I'm going to get this result. If I buy this program, I'm going to reach this destination. What, like, it's going there is an attached outcome to this exchange here. And the opposite is a recommendation. There's no exchange involved that isn't from your awareness within yourself to just choose a different path. And the path isn't necessarily something that has a laid out set of steps or protocols or methods in it. It's just you choosing to go in a different way. And the Bruce Lee quote of finding truth along the path for yourself, but choosing a different path and letting truth meet you there and take you to a different destination without there necessarily being some sort of like process, step one, step two, part one, part two, chapter one, chapter two, so on and so forth. Between those two things, which one of those feels the best? Now, if you've been in the economy of striving and you've been in the matrix for long enough, the idea of I'm going to spend money on this thing that is guaranteeing me that I'm going to reach this result or they're going to pay me back, give me my money back, that feels more secure because we bought into that system that if I give you money, you give me product, you give me this thing that you promised me that you're going to give. But to the point of the gross domestic product of 460 something billion dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the leadership industry just by itself. If that was actually taking people to destinations of leadership greatness, there would be no world war. There would be no conflict amongst different nations. The economies of every country would be astounding. Poverty would cease to exist. All the different problems that we as a world, let alone the countries of the world, would cease to exist because we'd have leaders in place, or the leaders that are in place would be taking care of those problems, and problems would cease to exist. But every industry needs problems to exist. Otherwise, there's not something to sell to people to solve those problems. They create the disease and then sell you the cure. That's the way that it's always worked. That's the nature of business. That's this pad of paper over here that's offering you answers. The one that's making a suggestion to you is not profiting from your decision in any way. It's giving you freedom and autonomy to make the choice for yourself, but the responsibility is entirely upon you. So that one doesn't seem to be, from the matrix standpoint, as safe of a bet, but it's the one that gives you the most freedom.
There's one slight reframe in what you just said to kind of drive the point home a little bit deeper. The institution didn't, what we talked about is that the institution didn't create the disease. The disease, I am not enough, wasn't created by the institution.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But no, don't say sorry, because this is helping to drive the point home that you just made. So no apologies, right? No guilt.
Okay.
This is helping to drive
I
the
forgot I
point
was
home.
Presbyterian for a second. Thank you.
And this is why it's so hard for people to see is
Mm.
the institution can't cure the disease. There's no cure for it. It didn't create it. That's why it can't cure it.
Okay.
All it can do is treat the symptoms. So it sees the symptoms of I am not enough. And it steps in and says, here's a leadership program. It steps in and it says,
Mm.
here's a personal development program. It steps in and says, here's why you need a government in place. It steps in and says, here's an education system to fix that symptom. Here's a medical
Mm.
system to treat that symptom. They're not in the business of curing disease. They can't be because if they could cure the disease, there's no reason for them to exist.
Yeah.
But they think they're curing the disease.
Or they're working towards the cure of the disease.
Or they're working towards the cure of the disease, but they don't even understand the disease.
Yeah.
So I have to listen back to this, but from my perspective, that reframe strengthens the argument that you were making, or the point that you were making. So just that little reframe, but that's how easy it is for people to think that because the institution is telling me that they're trying to cure my disease when I don't even understand what my disease is. I'm only
Okay.
aware of the symptoms of the disease. That's why I'm so exhausted.
Mm.
It's also the difficulty is like, what's the cure for cancer? Now, the cure for cancer is not getting it.
Mm.
That's really the only cure that works. So put anything in there, right? What's the cure for anything? The truest cure for something is not never getting the thing,
The absence of it.
is the absence of it. Exactly.
Okay.
So that then coming in and saying like, what is the cure for I am not enough?
Uh,
What is the
not bel
absence? What is the absence of I am not enough?
Well, I was going to say the belief that well, wholeness.
Perfect. What is the absence of I am not enough is wholeness.
Yeah.
What is across, you know, across religions, across cultures, across uh, philosophical writers, across spiritual writers. We've talked about some of them. Wayne Dyer comes to mind specifically on this
Yeah.
um, question. Is I mean, what exists outside of wholeness?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing exists outside of wholeness. So then, where does the belief I am not enough exist?
Nowhere.
Nowhere except in belief. It doesn't exist in
Um,
reality. It doesn't exist in truth.
mm.
So what is the cure? Like like what's okay? So what is the cure? The cure isn't another framework. The cure isn't a how-to program. The cure isn't changing your belief. If anything, it's dropping your belief and recognizing that you were never not whole.
So this comes back to the essence of Ho'oponopono,
Yeah, we
which
that's a beautiful, right, beautiful.
which which is, I mean, I there's several books that I reference quite often, but this one I think I reference almost every day. Zero Limits, the ancient Hawaiian secret to health, wealth, happiness, and success. Scrap all the subtitle stuff because that was used by I guess one person in particular to sell copies. But one of the main authors, Dr. Akihala Lin, is the one that taught his it's called self-concept Ho'oponopono. But his belief was that when we come into existence, we come into a world that has all kinds of um, burdens, beliefs, concepts, things that weigh us down and keep us from being able to see the divinity that we are. And what Ho'oponopono does is it cleans and clears those unconscious belief systems and ideas, essentially the manifestations and the fruits of the core lie that says, I am not enough, or I am not. It cleans and clears all that stuff off and returns us to source. And what he talks about, and a couple other spiritual teachers talk about, is getting to a place of zero. Wayne Dyer talks about this too. That at zero, that is the place where God, like ultimate divine, is, because there you can't divide zero. It's indivisible. But what that requires us to do is it requires us to let go of all the things that we hold on to, intangibly and tangibly, that we think make us who we are.
I think that's a beautiful place for us to wrap this conversation up. And if you're not familiar with that concept, Ho'onopono, or I probably didn't say that enough ponos in there, because I know when I say it, I'm like, I have to read it again. I mean, it's a beautiful concept. If you're not familiar with it, go check it out. It's fascinating. And if you have any questions, we dropped our emails at the beginning. If you want to push back, that's fine. We're open, and this is all angles asked. It's not all angles answered. It's not all angles resolved.
Well said, Ray. Well said.
So thanks for joining us for this conversation. And we hope that you enjoyed it. And we hope you will join us for the next one.